Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 107 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Mr. Timothy Haggis.
Hi, can't think of anything funny to say. You can understand, I'm sure.
Second, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Mr. Gabe Rollwald.
Oh, well, I'm in the same category as Tom. I got nothing. But good evening, folks.
I had the same problem. I was trying to put in your little nicknames, and I'm like, yeah, that's not really going to fit in this month. Third, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Inc. Studios, Mr. Andrew Zumwalt.
You got to take the crooked with the straights.
All right.
I like that.
There you go.
Good.
And
I
finally,
guess I'm the only one that watched the movies this time.
yeah, you watched the entire series of Moonlighting for this. Fourth, writer, actor, and director, Mr. Kyle Fine.
God, this real nice. Oh, hold on, I gotta take my gold teeth out. Okay, much better. Yes, hello, welcome to Cinesmack.
Take your fronts out.
I'm ready for
Take your grills.
inspiring film talk. Yes, yes.
All right, gonna poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, sanitation engineers and narcotic retailers, welcome to the main event! In celebration of Black History Month, tonight will be a battle of two of the most acclaimed movies of 2016. It's Denzel versus Mahershala. It's Denzel versus Jenkins. It's Denzel versus everyone. In the first quarter, written by August Wilson, directed by Denzel Washington, starring Denzel Washington, Viola Davis, and Mike County Williamson. Fences! In the second quarter, also from 2016, written and directed by Barry Jenkins, starring Mahershala Ali, Naomi Harris, and Janelle Monáe. La La Land, I mean Moonlight!
Have to say, I really enjoyed both of these films. I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I know Gabe doesn't like this, but I would watch Denzel read a phone book. All the hours of it. He's just awesome. I love him.
I don't dislike Denzel.
We can't.
I really don't.
Oh, here we go.
Are we going to start with a lie?
We can't.
No, I
start
don't.
Like this.
He was good. He was good.
Oh, mom and
We'll
dad.
save
are
that for the
fighting
acting
again.
category and the directing category.
Oh, I love to give you crap
worm
about
has
that, Gabe.
turned.
I know.
All right.
I think that that was totally misunderstood. I should have never said that.
All right, let's move on to our...
Denzel,
Yeah.
what do you think? Denzel? Oh, did we lose Denzel? He was on the line.
Oh yeah, he was.
Shit
He was
on
a
me.
guest tonight, right?
Oh, great.
Oh,
He dropped
great.
off. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
It's my
Gabe.
fault.
Cheese, Gabe.
That was our big get, Gabe.
Like I'm not. Yeah, I'm not doing this with that albino motherfucker.
All right, let's move on to our first round, which is
Good start,
writing.
good start, guys.
Okay, let's dive into this. So when we talk about writing for one of these movies in particular, I have to take into account that it is adapted from a stage play.
Is it?
Yes, Fences is
Couldn't tell.
based on in a stage. Yeah, really. We were watching it, and about 5 minutes in, I go, "God, this feels like a play." And then I Googled it, and I was like, "Oh shit, my radar is really good for this," because they did not adapt it out much from its play setting. Obviously, you have to do a little bit of molding and reworking, but I feel like they probably left a lot of things intact. Including huge chunks of monologues, which really hurt the pacing of this movie, in my opinion. The first scene is about 16, 17 minutes long, and it's mostly just Denzel Washington really acting. Anyways, that's more for the acting category. As far as the stories go, I think they're both compelling stories. They're interesting. There is a lot of sharp dialogue in Fences in particular. It feels like it came from the pen of a playwright. But the pacing and structure were a little odd. For sure, the movie really is too slow in places and then jumps kind of shockingly from thing to thing. And I don't know that the tone comes out right for me. I don't think I had the intended feeling at the end that the movie was going for, but that may be more of an overall thing. Moonlight was also a little unconventional because it's broken into 3 stories about one person. And I enjoyed the way they were put together, but I feel like some aspects were a little weaker than others. I would like to see some things developed a little bit more. But overall, it was pretty tight, and I don't have much to complain about, really. In that case, they're very different movies structurally, plot-wise, pacing-wise. For me, the stage play feel of Fences, though, is so obvious at points, and it's to the detriment of the movie, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty obvious that it was,
Sorry, just real quick. Moonlight was also based on a play, but it was unproduced.
Right. The writer was a player. He's actually the head of the Yale playwriting department now.
Right. Terrell Alvin McCraney.
Yeah. But Moonlight does not feel like a play to me. It is not staged that way.
Correct.
No.
Fences is very much still shot like you would see a play.
Nope. Correct.
And that was just a little distract. It did not quite fit the cinema mold the way I would have, enjoyed a little bit more if it was not so play-ish. I think that works better, and for me, it works better in musicals when things feel like a big set. I mean, that to me is easier than adapting it just straight to a film like that.
Yeah, I think one of the other films that we did that made me think of that is what's the Planet from Outer Space one?
Little Shop of Horrors.
The Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
That one, did not feel far adapted from a play. either. And it is pretty obvious because it is large chunks of dialogue, and a lot of the exposition is handled through dialogue. Whereas I felt like Moonlight was the other way around. Especially, I don't know how to pronounce his name appropriately. Chiron. Chiron. The main character, he almost never speaks. So they don't rely heavily on dialogue to move the story forward. Whereas I felt like Fences definitely. I mean, you get a lot of the story through dialogue. You get a lot of the backstory through dialogue. And it's all basically most of the film is in one location, really. I mean, his house and in his backyard. So yeah, it definitely does not. It does not move far from the whole kind of play setup.
Do you think there's a way that they could have shot this in a way that didn't feel so play-like, or do you think a lot of it's just the dialogue?
Well, I think because the original story, I think one thing they could do is maybe expand out into locations. Maybe they could say, well, for obvious reasons, the play happens, in very few locations, But maybe they could have said, well, maybe this exchange could have happened in a different location. In the play, it happened in their backyard or in the kitchen or whatever, but maybe it could have happened somewhere else in the neighborhood or something. But I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe there weren't those opportunities there. But I think that's one of the things that made it feel like it didn't really move very far away from the stage play, is that it didn't really expand on locations. And when it did, I felt like the scenes weren't really necessary. But we can talk about that in the directing category.
I've read a lot of August Wilson's stuff. In college, I majored in theater, and going through his plays were obviously a big part of that. So he's written, I don't know if you guys know this, but he's written a series of like decade plays. He's written a play for every decade of the 20th century, kind of about the Black experience. And so this is his play about the 1950s. And I've, as far as I've understood, that Denzel Washington wants to do more of these. But again, I just, I was watching it and it just had a lot of those play tropes in it. And, I think about it and I almost feel like there's not even like a side of the house, like the back of the house is open, like we're in the audience watching it. Even though I know that's not the case in the movie, but that's how it felt. And so, I can't decide whether or not there's a way to do this that would make it more like a movie, or maybe that's what Denzel wanted to do, wanted it to be, get this story in front of people that don't normally go to the theater. So that's a possibility.
All that being said, though, I thought the dialogue was fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
I thought it was along the lines of Quentin Tarantino good. I was like, oh, this is good dialogue. A lot of the story is told that way, so it better be good, and it was. I really thought the writing was fantastic. So I don't know if the fact that it still felt like a play was a result merely of the writing or of directorial choices for that. I felt like the writing was a little bit more jumpy for Moonlight, because it does do the kind of this 3 acts, this 3 phases of his life kind of thing. And in between the phases, I felt like certain things just kind of jumped. Like, and we lost certain information in that jump. And in some cases, maybe that's okay, but I felt like I lost out on things that were important to me as a viewer. Like what happened to Juan in particular. He's kind of a big part of Chiron's like young life, but then all of a sudden he's just gone. And maybe that, maybe that's part of the reality of his experience or something. But I just felt like as a viewer, I wanted to know more about what happened there. So I felt like it was a little more jumpy.
Yeah, I actually the disconnect with Moonlight for me was, I think, the way that they jumped through time with the 3 different acts that they did. It almost made it to the point where I didn't really care what was going on with Chiron anymore. We were just watching this story that was there, and I didn't really feel connected to him. I didn't feel that there was really, and maybe that's just the background, getting to know, and having that empathy for the character. I mean, he was struggling with his mother and school life, and then it immediately jumps to him in basically high school, and then we go to him being all buffed out because he went to jail, and we assume that was because of his jail time. But it felt very jarring to go from those 3 positions, and he didn't really have a lot of dialogue in really any of them until the very last act, I guess you would call it. It seemed very. I felt very lost to what was going to happen next. It was kind of like it's kind of awkward, and maybe I just need more to actually connect with this character a little better. And I'm not sure if that was the writing or how it was presented, but it definitely felt odd to me. Nonetheless. Oh, do I need to keep going?
Oh, well,
I thought you were going to keep going.
Oh, I was thinking about Moonlight quick, and when you talk about it feeling awkward and a little bit strange and uncertain and like things are missing, I wonder if that is intentional to kind of mirror Chiron's experience, because he seems so uncertain and alienated and out of place a lot that each time they would skip forward, especially after you find out Juan is gone and they're talking about some funeral, you don't really find out what happens to him, but you get the idea that his life is so unstable and that people come into it and are out of it. And I was so surprised to see at the end that his mother was still alive, considering all the things that had gone on with her. And I wonder if that structure and the way they do it is an attempt to mirror the uncertainty and the kind of incompleteness of his phases of life when he's struggling with everything.
I guess I can buy that when he went from his high school, how they ended basically Act 2, where he breaks the chair over the kid in the classroom and they arrest him.
Yeah.
And then he's out of jail and he's not doing the greatest in the world, but he's all buff and everything. And it actually took me a minute to figure out, is this still the same guy? And then he said a couple things. I was like, oh, okay, so this is Chiron. Okay, we're back with him. That gap didn't seem as awkward to me, because it's like, hey, he went to jail. There's this time that didn't really may or may not have actually shaped his life, but obviously shaped his body, and that's about it. Whereas when they went from him being this quiet little scrawny kid to his high school, it was just really weird. Like that, I felt like I needed more to be able to make that jump, to be like, oh, I still care that this kid's being picked on, or that he's still in the same position. And it was just kind of like, we just did, I don't know. The 1 to 2 was probably the worst for me. 2 to 3, at least I was like, he was in jail. Okay. So I totally see your point of view though, Kyle. I mean, I see what you're trying to say. I just, I didn't catch it that way. I just felt like more of just a break in the story of, well, we don't have any more to say, so now he's high schooler.
See, I felt that I don't know. That's more of a directing thing, so I don't want to get into. I love the story structure of it, and I felt like, when it gets to the third chapter of it, and you see what he's become, and you have expectations. You think you know where his life is going to end up, and then he winds up somewhere completely different. But at the same time, you're like, oh my god, this all totally makes sense. That he's kind of co-opted Juan's persona in his career and his hat. It's just I thought it was just like really, really, really well done. And I love it. I have tons to say in acting and directing, so I don't want to get into it right here, but I thought I love the story structure of it. So
I mean, I definitely have to agree that I did like, a lot of the dialogue actually in both of the movies. We didn't really touch base too hard on Moonlight with the dialogue, but I really liked the dialogue even in Moonlight. It felt, almost real, as in like some of it wasn't scripted. It was just them being themselves. And I felt that pulled the movie into a more suspension of disbelief, and that you could actually like be a part of their lives a little bit easier. So I will give it credit for that, because I did like a lot of how things were being, like the one scene where his mom roughed him up for money so she can get more crack.
Oh,
like that was a really hard scene.
That's rough.
But the dialogue wasn't, I don't know. And maybe this was part goes into acting, so I don't want to brage too much. But I mean, the dialogue that was written between those exchanges right there were really, I thought that was a really well done. And even the dialogue that you didn't hear, and then you didn't hear until later because of where his mom is yelling in the hall and he's little, and you don't hear anything she says, and then it skips, and then he actually has a dream of that same scene, and you actually hear what she says. I thought that was well done, and I liked that, the way they did that. So, I mean, there are pieces of it that I felt were, I don't know, exceptional over some of the other other things I've discussed. But so I'm kind of like, I'm on the fence, no pun intended, but I'm on the fence with this one when it comes to that. I don't know. It was just, it was different.
I think in Moonlight there was significantly less dialogue.
Yes.
But there was significantly less, but what was there was more significant.
Yeah.
And it was more natural.
Yeah, it was definitely more natural. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I really did like it. It was monologue and lots of dialogue and fences. But I did like it. It was well written. It was very entertaining, but it didn't seem very natural, like a way a person would naturally talk.
Right. It's very much written for a stage play. It's insanely crafted.
Yes.
And the pace and number
fast.
of words that come at you is staggering and impressive.
Yeah.
Especially in the opening dialogue. It's, I mean, I wonder what that looks like on a page.
Yeah.
I mean, to sit down and be like, these are your sides. This is what you're going to be reading. You're like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
I got to memorize that.
This is 15 minutes.
I have the script right here from school if you want to take a picture of it. But I think one of the things too is that, I mean, imagine all the things that they show in Moonlight, like the little glances and being able to move around in location, and the way that we get backstory from people that you can't do in a play. You can't really kind of do a flashback, and you can't really, get a close up of a piece of paper on a desk to tell you about something that happened. And it seems like Denzel was kind of constrained by that a little bit, but and again, it goes back to it being a play. So,
well, and the way that you watch Fences is it whatever information is delivered through dialogue is the information you have. You're not making connections. You're not making your own judgments. It's laid out to you black and white. Whereas with Moonlight, there are things that you draw from the situations, you draw from things that are happening around them, and that makes a big. And again, it's definitely the play type aspect, but it is. I mean, that is a big difference. And you talk about the script for Fences, the actual play script. I'm sure is a lot different because I bet the screenplay was much more difficult to lay out, to break that up, where you had camera movements and where you shifted and where he panned in and stuff. I mean, I think that would be messier than the actual play. Movements, blocking, all that stuff. I think that in itself is quite the achievement in itself. Because
it'd probably be real tempting just to lock the camera down and shoot it all like a play.
Because August Wilson he also did the screenplay. So for him to take his vision from stage and be able to portray that into a visual screen without, like you said, just locking the camera down, letting the guy monologue, and then moving the camera to the next guy. I mean, I'm sure that wasn't easy for him.
Well, just so you know, they pretty much just did the play. August Wilson died 15 years ago, so he, the script that you see for the screenplay, he's credited with it because it's pretty much untouched from the stage play.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, if you knew what that was about, because I did notice that he was credited with the screenplay, but he died in like 2005 or 2006 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite know how that worked. I didn't know if he was actually working on a screenplay version of the play or what they did there.
No, as far as I know, that the screenplay is very close to what they used for the play itself. So
it is
interesting.
Yeah.
It is, but I have some trivia for that. So let's go ahead and put this to a vote, gentlemen.
We'll just shut the hell up.
Oh.
Well,
Okay.
White. Oh, did you have something else to say?
I was just going to say that regardless of turning from play and everything else, I have to agree that even though it was crafted dialogue, that man knows how to put words together. And that is something that is, for some people, very difficult. And damn, he's just really good at it. And I, too, have read some of his other stuff. But, wow, I mean, he's just really, really good at it.
Yeah, he is.
Me too, agree.
Good job, Caveman Mike.
All right, Kyle.
Oh boy. I feel like if I give it to Fences, it's going to be because of the play, and that's kind of difficult. I'm going to give it to Moonlight.
All right, Tom.
I'm going to give it to Fences because of the play, because they're pretty much interchangeable, I feel. So.
All right. Andrew?
I'm also going to give it to Fences.
And Gabe?
Yeah, the movie feels like a play, but I really enjoyed the writing in Fences, so I'm going with Fences as well.
All right. Denzel Washington and Spike Lee did uncredited treatments on August Wilson's original screenplay in pre-production. Washington also did even more numerous rewrites on set. Denzel requested to go uncredited to honor Wilson and to ensure Wilson would be the only writer to receive any recognition and awards. So, as I said earlier, Moonlight was based on an unproduced play. The name of that play was In Moonlight, Black Boys Look Blue, and it was by MacArthur Fellow Terrell Alvin McCraney. There you go. Essentially, two movies based on plays. It's just one was never saw the stage and was probably lent more of a cinematic feel, right? That's what we've kind of discussed. I guess we'll discuss it more. Let's move on to our second round, acting.
I think this is one of the categories where things kind of diverge a little bit between these two movies. Denzel and Viola Davis are really great actors. But like we've said, it's hard to get away from that. You're watching a play feeling. And I just, you can almost like feel the heat from the lights when you're watching this movie. But Moonlight, on the other hand, has some performances by actors. Mahershala Ali was not very well known at this point. He had been, he had a supporting role on House of Cards, and he was very good on that. So we saw some promise, but then he was in this and blew everybody away. And now he's, in the course of 5 years, he's become one of the most sought after actors out there. He's just, the guy is just really, really great in it. Naomi Harris as his mom Paula does a really wonderful job, and Janelle Monáe is really great as Teresa. And one of the actors that doesn't get a whole lot of attention, I feel like, Trevante Rhodes, who plays Black in the third chapter. He does this. There's this. He plays such a hard character, up until the point when Kevin calls him. He's just, he's got kind of like soft-hearted, and or he's kind of lighthearted. But then once Kevin reaches out to him, you just kind of start to see that hardness kind of fall away, and he finally gets to kind of be his true self. And the subtlety that Trevante does with that role is really amazing to watch. And I'm kind of disappointed that he wasn't really recognized as much as some of the other actors in the movie. But he's kind of confined to that third chapter, so he doesn't have as much range or much play as the two women that are on throughout. So let's see, what else was I going to say? I don't know. I think McKelty Washington in Fences. There's a scene where they're looking at him through the window, and he's like swinging at the ball hanging from the tree. And he has got to have the worst baseball swing I've ever seen in my life. Like I was watching it, and I'm not.
He was a football player, though.
He is a football player, and maybe that's intentional. Maybe it was very much like he is definitely not his dad. His skills lie in other athletics. Maybe that was intentional, but I was watching it. And I was like, that is the worst baseball swing I've seen since my son played, smash ball. So.
I think one of the things that stood out for me in Moonlight is that through those three different phases, in each phase, Chiron is played by a different actor. And I was struck by the continuity that they had. I felt like, he looked different, but his mannerisms were similar enough that I knew who it was.
Yeah, well, that was great.
Yeah,
I thought they did a really good job between those three actors and probably the director, having that continuity of drawing that same character, that same person through three different actors. And that's one of the things that struck me there. And, in part, I think they benefited from, very little dialogue. He was quiet. He didn't speak much, so they didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff as much, like diction or pacing or whatever. But what they did do was kind of the body movements, that they were, even when he in the third phase, when he was big buff, badass drug dealer, there was still this reservedness and this kind of he had hesitance to make eye contact, and I felt like they really drew that through even into that version of his character, and I was really struck by that.
Yeah, and I think that comes out a little more too when you see him meet Kevin. It's almost like, I don't want to use the word regresses, but that facade falls away and he becomes really vulnerable with him, and he is so much more identifiable as Chiron, like the character from the whole movie. Like it's almost like watching him, kind of fall back through time to his old self. And I agree with you, Tom. I think that the actor in the third part, I was surprised that he was not nominated for awards. I thought he was incredible. I mean, he was amazing. He played that character beautifully, and the way he kept the sort of tics, especially when he was nervous and confronted, was really great. That's so strong to pull through that thread in your movie and remind everybody that this is one person's life, even though it's played by 3 different people.
And then there was some of the things too that he kind of adapted from Juan when he was sitting around driving with his friend, just kind of the way he leaned and the way he drove. And there was those conscious things that he just wanted to be like this guy that he looked up to, regardless of what his profession was.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think, they definitely benefited from the lack of dialogue. And it kind of goes back to our discussion about it, being like a play or being like a movie. And a lot of the acting was more physical and more subtle in Moonlight. So it was more about, like how they held themselves or, eye contact and eye movement. And it was definitely more cinematic and more subtle than Fences was. That being said, I enjoyed the performances in Fences. Viola Davis was fully, deserving of her Oscar. And Denzel Washington was really good. I don't know how they memorize that much dialogue. And
cue cards.
I guess they have the benefit of editing. So if they screw it up, they can edit it. But man, that's a lot of dialogue to deliver, and I think they did a great job. I enjoyed the performances in Fences, but it was definitely a different type of performance.
Sure, it's very big theater type acting, acting out to the back of the crowd. And I thought Viola Davis was great as a counterpoint to Denzel Washington because he is so big and loud and commanding in the stage, and she was very subtle at times and quiet, and was, even though she had dialogue, she was a little slower and more paced out, and I thought she was great as as sort of the anchor to him.
Well, yeah, and there's a scene where he's telling a story. I don't remember exactly which story it was he was telling, maybe about his childhood and his dad coming along and finding him with the girl or something. And Viola Davis's character is just standing on the porch. And
she's just like peeking around a corner.
Yeah. She and that was a more subtle addition to Fences than most of it was. No. But it was very it spoke something about her and her character and how much she loved him, and she had probably heard that story, a dozen times, but she was still engaged and yeah. So her performance in particular was really outstanding, and she was good.
Speaking of all the lines, I know Denzel actually performed the play 114 times.
On the stage?
On the stage at the Court Theater.
Well, that would help. Yeah.
So I don't know if Viola Davis was there. I don't know if she was a part of that or if she was brought in for the part. But just to give you guys a little heads up on that.
Yeah, that would definitely help as far as...
Do you have trivia about who originated that role on Broadway?
I do, but I'm actually not going to use it, though, so you can.
Oh. So, yeah, the original actor who played that character on Broadway was James Earl Jones.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
And I think that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of a guy I'd listen to read the phone book.
Yeah.
I pretty much agree. So the only add-ins I'm going to throw in there was Alex Hibbert with the young Sharon at Little is what they called him. But I mean, his mannerisms, the way he acted, the way he just was didn't have a lot of dialogue, was kind of to himself, but just was I really enjoyed his performance. I thought he did very well, especially just because it's hard to find kid actors, and he was damn good. And the only one, I mean, yeah, Denzel did great. Viola did great. I was going to mention that Denzel has done a lot of stage, and so that makes a big difference when he's doing this kind of a show. But out of all of them, I felt that, and I'm going to butcher this, so I apologize, but Mike Kelty Williamson, the guy that played Gabe, I think stole the show in Fences. He was phenomenal. His persona, the simplistic light that he brought into all the darkness that was going on in that story, his character and him as doing the quality of acting that he did, I think he stole the show out of everybody. Everyone did a phenomenal job in both of these movies, but man, I really liked his performance. I really, really did. I can't say enough about how much I enjoyed his mannerisms, his dialogue, his just how he held himself, what he did. It was awesome.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing. That's the kind of performance that could really backfire on you too.
It sure could.
It could be the kind of thing where it's like, oh, that was terrible and goofy and really stood out. But I think it stood out for a good reason, because I enjoyed his performance too, and I felt like there was he brought a certain warmth to this cold world that they lived in, and everybody was always happy to see him, and so I thought his performance was really good too.
Even when Viola Davis had just heard the news from Denzel that he had knocked up another chick, even when Gabe came in and was like, "I brought you a rose," he is completely oblivious to this negative darkness that is currently happening and brought a glimmer of light and put something into that moment. And
it's also nice that they're never mean to him.
No one is.
Even in that moment when they very well could have just said, shut up and get out of here.
Right. She took the rose and she said, "Thank you, Gabe." Mm-hmm. And so I really appreciated him. So I won't linger on about other stuff that we've already talked about, but I wanted to get him and poor little Alex some due, because I thought they were probably a little underrated, because everyone else was focused on, when they saw this, other people have probably, were focusing on Denzel's and the Violas and the Mahershals and stuff, but I thought they stuck out. So
nope, I totally agree with you guys. Is there anything else you want to add to the acting category tonight?
Janelle Monáe is a pretty young lady.
Yeah.
I second that.
Yep.
I second that.
Yeah.
It passes.
There we go.
All right. Let's put it to a vote.
We voted.
It passes.
Oh, wait. What are we voting on?
Yeah. I don't know.
Tom.
But it passed.
I go Moonlight on this one.
Andrew.
I'm gonna stick with Gabe, and I'm gonna go with Fences. The Gabe in the movie. Sorry.
All right. The Gabe in the podcast.
There are great performances in Fences, but I think Moonlight is more cinematic in its performances, so I'm going to go with Moonlight.
All right. Kyle?
I'm also going to go with Moonlight.
Okie dokie. When first approached, Naomi Harris was very reluctant to play a crack addict, since it was so alien to her teetotaling persona. Harris had been insistent from the start on a career plan to only portray women in a positive light. However, when Barry Jenkins confided to her that she'd be portraying a character based on his own crack-addicted mother, she agreed to take on the role. In preparation for the part, she spent a month researching the lives of drug addicts by watching several videos of crack addicts on YouTube.
Huh. On YouTube?
On YouTube.
God, they got everything on there.
And
Literally.
I also want to add this, just how awesome she is. She had to shoot her entire role in 3 days. In between her promotional tour of Spectre, due to a visa problem, the scenes spanned 15 years in the character's life and were filmed out of sequence in 3 days.
Wow. That's impressive.
That is very impressive. Viola Davis's performance was campaigned as "quote unquote" supporting during award season, though this placement was seen as category fraud by some award pundits. In an interview with Deadline, Denzel said he disagreed with the placement, but that this was Davis's own decision, which would improve her chances of winning.
Oh, is that what she won for, supporting?
Yes.
Oh, I guess I didn't realize that. Oh, it was, what's her name in La La Land for, wasn't it? For Best Actress that year?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, because I don't know how that's a supporting role. I mean,
No, I agree.
I mean, she's
That
like
would be a
she's a
female
main
lead.
character.
Yeah.
All right. I see that as a female lead.
But by the way, just another note. Did you guys know that the guy who played Gabriel was Bubba in Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I totally watched the whole thing.
Shit. Wow.
I totally watched the whole thing.
He's also really good in that.
Yeah, he is.
I was thinking that these movies happen in the same universe. In like 20 years, he's going to get his head fixed, age backwards, and go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
That totally did. You just blew my mind. I totally did not recognize that at all.
Oh, no,
I don't know why.
I didn't recognize it as the same, same person, same actor.
He was
usually pretty
He was
good
in
about
Con Air
that.
too,
Yeah. Yep.
which is the best movie he's ever been in. I mean, we could agree on that.
He played Don King and Ali, so
Oh my God.
Really?
Yeah.
He's like the best actor nobody's ever heard of. We're like, what's going on? Why do we not know more about this guy?
All right.
He's one of the. He's in the background and he plays supporting characters that are just amazing, and he's always in makeup or doing something different, and that makes him a great actor.
I agree with that statement. All right, let's move on to our third round, which is directing.
Lots of things have been said about both of these movies so far, so we're going to start with the Moonlight. I felt there were some really good directorial choices. I think there's a mixed reaction, and maybe I'm the mixed part of it when it comes to how it was told with the 3 parts. But I would say that definitely stands out about the movie. And if that was a directorial choice or a writing choice or even an editing choice mixed together, I think it makes this movie different. And it tells the story that they're trying to achieve in that hour and 50 minutes, 2-hour movie, without having to drag along where it gets so long that you're just like, all right, get on with it. They kept moving the story forward. And this definitely goes towards the acting as well, but a director in a movie definitely has something to do with how a actor will portray a specific character. To get we'll start with the 3 parts. To get kids to act and to seem like kids messing around, and then turn around and have Alex Hibbert be this shy, closed off, no dialogue, but you knew exactly what he was thinking. You know how he was feeling without saying a word, because of his body, because of the way he was moving, the way that the camera was not always, it was never in his face. It was always off to the side. It was always, so you were kind of looking into his life, I thought was phenomenal. And I caught into a lot of how they were trying to make that part of it with him as a kid. And then definitely the choice of going from You're Older with Ashton Sanders, definitely his thug life and he pulls out the gun from underneath the dashboard or wherever it was hidden or whatever. He's got his grills in. The guy's buff. You're thinking this guy came out of prison. He's just a stuck-up asshole. He is a badass now. No one fucks with him. And within a couple of scenes, he's this gentle giant that has this almost passion that immediately turns, and I think it was Gabe that said he kind of recesses, or maybe that was Kyle, but he like recesses back into his Alex type character where he's shy, he's reserved, he's fragile, he needs somebody there. And to see that shift and between the director and acting to make that happen was so well done. And even I think they did at the very end, after it faded to black when they were sitting on the couch, it fades to black and then they show Alex by himself standing looking at the ocean and that beautiful, beautiful sunset and then just the big, huge ocean as he's standing there. And it's real quick. I thought was a great ending because it definitely pushed towards that. So really enjoyed the directing. I don't know if I have a lot of negative. I don't know if I'm going to say anything negative at all about either one of them, but I really enjoyed those points. In Fences, I'm going to be the odd man out because I know this was a stage play. I loved the way that it was shot and felt like a stage play. I knew that it was a stage play going into this, but the way it was filmed, the way that they had continuous shots, the way the dolly movement was, and even some of the wide shots of like down the streets, some of the beautiful skylines they had, some of the wide shots, and then they wouldn't break when there was a lot of dialogue going on, and the movements were there, but sometimes they were really subtle. There's a couple of times they were trucking into Denzel, and it was super slow, but it was there. And I thought that was just really, really well done. And that could have been a mix between the director and the cinematographer, and that with obviously Denzel was acting when when that was happening. But I really, really enjoyed those shots, and I enjoyed being in those scenes because you definitely felt like you were part of that. And again, that goes back to that stage play thing, but I thought that he did a good job taking the story and adapting it for a screen, even though it was stage play, because we recognize it as a stage play and we see things differently. I actually enjoyed that part of it. It felt like I was always a part of what was going on. I didn't lose sight of where they were going. I knew the house. I felt like I was part of the family, and I was just kind of an onlooker. And yes, I felt like I was watching a play, but on the screen in an adapted form that made me still interested. And it wasn't like one shot, as we said earlier. It wasn't just the camera was locked down. There was still motion. There was still movement from character to character. There was still dialogue that was being spoken. You would still see reactions whether it was in the background or from the side pan. And so I felt that they did a nice job of giving me a stage play, but making it movie cinema type stage play. So I really kind of dug it. I know that it sounds like everyone else was kind of like on the fence, no pun intended again, about stage playiness of it. But I really enjoyed that part of it. So now everyone can say all the negative things and rip it apart. And there you go.
Hey,
Go ahead.
if I'm gonna say anything about Fences, and I love Fences, it's a great movie, but it's a little heavy-handed. I just feel like some of the acting it's very stage acting, and that can just be a little bit too much in a movie where it's a little bit. I know it's weird, but like a movie can be a little bit more intimate than a stage can when you're trying to hit the back row. Mm-hmm. But then some of the other things too, the shape of the dove in the clouds at the end seemed like a bit much. And and then on the other hand, I think Barry Jenkins directing in Moonlight is so it's so great. One of the things that I love about we talked about during the writing a little bit, but what I paid really close attention to this time when I was watching it is that during Little Story, you have this sense of you're just trying to like put things together. What's happening? What's the relationship between these adults? And, can I trust this person? Can I not trust this person? And he does this amazing job of taking you as an audience member and really putting you in the position of the child and not really trying to put pieces together and not having all the information. And that's what it's like as a kid to try and figure out what's going on around you with these little context clues. And then as the story progresses to the second chapter, you have a better understanding of the situation. Not 100%, you still have a lot of questions about, the whys of the things people do. And then when you get to Black Story, things are more concrete and things make a lot more sense to you. And you feel a more like an adult in the situation. And that's one of the things I think Moonlight does better than anything else is that you get to kind of grow with, Chiron's character. I think the score in Moonlight is absolutely amazing. It's actually, I'm not kidding. It's my alarm when I wake up in the morning. Little's theme is, and it's like the greatest way to wake up. It's very, it's not this like crazy beeping alarm. It's this nice, gentle way to wake me up. So it's kind of weird. I'm watching it and I keep hearing my alarm go off, which is weird.
Started getting ready for work.
yeah. I kept getting ready for work while I was watching the movie. I think Barry Jenkins does a really great use of focus and drawing people's attention to. He's got a very shallow focus in his films, and he does a great job of making you draw your attention to certain things around the screen. And then the editing. One of the scenes I love watching over and over again because it's one of those things. I mean, how often do you watch a movie and like, I've never seen anybody do anything like that, and it's so effective? Is when Chiron decides that he's going to go attack Tyrell, and you're not really sure where he's going, but he's running through the school, and he keeps slamming open these doors, and then they smash cut, and you're on the other side of the door, but it's a completely different door, and it's very jarring, and you're just kind of like, something's not right. Like he'll put his hand on the release for the door and throw it open, but then he'll come through a completely different door, and it throws you off kilter, and you don't really know what's going on, and it lays this really nice foundation for the end of the second act. When he takes the chair and smashes Tyrell, which I feel a little bad for Tyrell, but it's so satisfying when he breaks it. I just standing up to bullies is just my heart goes out to it, and it's one of those things where you're like, his kid might be all right.
Right. Well, I feel like in many ways the directing in both of these films was in ways understated. Now you may not feel that way for Fences because the acting is definitely not understated. It's big and over the top, but I think the directing of some of it is very understated as far as the placement of the camera and the camera movement and the the music, the choice of music and those kinds of things is very, very understated. And definitely for Moonlight, I felt like there's a quietness to it. And I think it reflected, the directing of the film reflected Chiron's inner character to a certain degree. There was this understated quietness to all of it. There's not a lot of flashy, camera movements. There's no visual effects in these movies. Nothing too crazy except maybe the end of Fences, maybe. And so I actually kind of appreciated that. It was just kind of like we're just allowed to enjoy these characters in both films. We get to enjoy these characters growing and changing right before our eyes, and we're not bombarded with all kinds of crazy directorial choices as far as camera movements and visual effects and that kind of stuff that we're so used to these days. So I thought actually the directing on both of these was pretty good. I don't know, but it's the acting I think in Fences that really makes it seem over the top. But Denzel makes some really good choices in there as far as framing some of the shots. There are scenes I remember where Viola Davis is in the kitchen or whatever, and she's kind of like she's framed in the doorway and kind of isolated by herself.
Yeah,
and it's a really subtle, again, understated way of making that statement, of making her feel alone and seem alone and isolated. And so I think there were some really good shot choices in Fences. And also in Moonlight. But Moonlight is a little bit more, and maybe it had something to do with the budget. Maybe it was a choice. Moonlight is a little bit more run and gun at times. There's a little bit more moving camera, but it's very handheld. And I think, again, that kind of gives you a sense of Chiron's kind of inner character. It's not stable. It's a little bit unstable, and the soft focus does that as well, and especially in certain scenes, there are dream sequences where you're not quite sure if it's real or a dream, and the focus is very soft, and it's kind of things are kind of going in and out of focus, and you're a little bit disoriented, and you're like, what's happening? I don't know, and that kind of thing. But I think it is very reflective of those characters and the situations that they're in. So I think they're both very well directed.
Yeah, I don't want to retread a lot of the stuff that's already been said, but the word that comes to mind when I think about Moonlight's camera work is intimate. It's very close to you.
Yeah.
And there are some scenes where it's uncomfortably close, where the framing is a little bit off. You know what I mean? That just feels a bit off kilter. People are too big, too centered, it's just too in your face. And I think that's all designed for effect. And there are a lot of scenes in the movie where Chiron is by himself and he is the center of attention. And in those times, there is a real feeling of quietness and stillness and vulnerability that I really liked. At the end of the movie, when he pulls up and gets out of his car at Kevin's diner, he kind of gets out, pulls his pants up, he's doing stuff in his car, and then he just kind of stands there for a minute and walks real slow towards the door. And that's, I don't know, that shot and the things that follow through the end of the movie really got to me in like a this is the payoff to this movie kind of way, and that they did it right. So I really enjoyed both of these movies. I was really worried going into this month that these movies are going to be super heavy and kind of depressing and dark, but I just think that I see 2-hour dramas, and that's just what I'm thinking most of the time. But I liked both of these movies, and I found great things in both of them. I like the directorial choices more in Moonlight. It fits more with the story, although I think in Fences too, with the way it's portrayed and the stage acting feel, it's perfectly acceptable for it. I wish they would have adapted a few more things to be showing, not telling. I think someone mentioned earlier that everything you know in the movie is told to you by someone. You can't ever figure any of it out on your own because someone is going to tell you about it. And if they haven't, they will in just a few minutes. So that was a little difficult. I enjoy that in a play. I mean, and some of that is inevitable in a play because you lose some of your tools when you're doing it on stage. You don't have creative editing, flashbacks, special effects, other things like that you can do to create those situations. But overall, I thought they're both really well directed. I know Denzel Washington directed Fences, right? Is this his first directing?
Oh no,
role?
He did Antoine Fisher.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which also had
yeah.
What's her name? God, I just went brain dead.
Viola Davis?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think they were both well done, both very different styles. I found Moonlight to be very compelling because of how gritty and close and the color choices they made at points. It's disorienting, and I like the stylistic choices in the film.
Well, and
this was his third film that he directed.
And I mean, you're talking about the intimate shots that Barry Jenkins chose for Moonlight. I mean, he also, I don't know if you've seen If Beale Street Could Talk.
No, I have not. Is Viola Davis in that movie too? I feel like she's in that movie.
Well, that movie is Barry Jenkins also did, and it's very that's the Regina King, I believe, is in that.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that movie has a very similar style and feel to it. So he definitely has a Barry Jenkins style. Let's put it that way. And it has a very similar intimacy, I think, is the best word that you said, Kyle, that really portrays that. And he really does. He gets up in your face. Things aren't necessarily always framed perfectly. And I think some of those are choices to give you, so the picture reveals a feeling instead of you having to rely on the character.
All right. Are we done with this category, gentlemen?
I think so.
Okay, let's put it to a vote. Andrew.
I'm going to go with Fences on this one.
All right. Gabe.
I'm going to go Moonlight.
Kyle.
Moonlight.
Tom.
Moonlight.
All righty then. As I mentioned earlier, Denzel had performed the play 114 times at the Court Theater in New York City in 2010. So he said directing the film adaptation became quite a simple readjustment.
Huh.
There's not a whole lot about the directing for
I suppose that's probably true, though. I mean,
yeah.
If you're going to try and somewhat do similar blocking, similar sets, similar feelings, and you have a little bit more growth is a bad word, a little more openness to be able to, do sets instead of it's on stage, I suppose.
Yep.
That'd be interesting.
Director Barry Jenkins was inspired by his own childhood in Miami, where he was, quote unquote, always surrounded by this very lush green grass and these beautiful golden sunsets, unquote. He grew up in an, quote unquote, awesome neighborhood where some very dark things happened, and he feels as though his childhood was, and this really sticks with me, quote unquote, a beautiful struggle. It just makes it sound like, you're in this paradise, but you're surrounded by horrible things that happen, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to our fourth and final round overall.
Well, what have we not talked about in these movies so far?
Cinematography. You guys kind of,
Tom
already brought up music.
I felt like music, like the directing was a little bit understated in both of these films. The music in Moonlight was very beautiful, and it was interesting because there was the soundtrack, and then there was the score as well. So I think that the song that Tom liked so much is part of a really quiet, beautiful, moving score. But then there's also that music plays important roles. It's not really overt, but music plays important roles in the world of the characters as well. Because is it Kevin? His love interest, is that his name? The character's name, Kevin?
Yeah.
That song reminds him of Chiron, and then they're listening to music in the cars all the time, There's music playing in the various locations that they're at, and it's never overt. It's never in your face. But I think it's always important to that scene and that character and where they are and what they're doing. But I felt like in both of these, I was like, is there any music in Fences? There were times when I'm like, is there any music or is it just dialogue? Dialogue and maybe some sound effects of like, dogs barking in the background or something. There was a little bit, but there wasn't a lot of music in Fences. So I don't know what else do we have to discuss on these?
They were both really good movies.
Yeah. They were. I had not seen either of them before this. And I definitely, actually, I did enjoy both of them. I did feel like I probably should have mentioned this in directing. I felt like maybe Fences was a little long. And there were a few things that they probably could have cut from Fences.
I think it feels longer in points because the pacing is so erratic.
I can agree with that.
There was a scene, we talk about it being kind of play-like and how much of it takes place at his house in the backyard, pretty much, or in the kitchen. There's one scene that really stood out to me, and I'm like, why is this even in here? We don't need this, because then the very following scene, they go back to dialogue describing what happened in the previous scene. We didn't even need it. So there's a scene where he goes for his meeting with the union boss or whatever. Mm-hmm. And some white guy in a suit comes out and calls him in and says, he's ready for you now. And Denzel is waiting in the lobby of what looks like almost like a courthouse, some kind of big building. And he's wearing a suit, which we're not used to seeing him wear. Mm-hmm. And he gets up and he just walks in, and that's it. That's the entirety of the scene. And it's one of the very few scenes that's not actually in the house or the backyard or in that one location. And I'm like, well, what was the point of that scene? I felt like that was one scene that could have been cut out, because immediately after, then Viola, Rose is saying, well, what happened at this meeting? Well, he's coming. He'll be home soon. He'll tell you what happened. And then we don't actually see what happened in the meeting. We just get his story of it after he gets home. And it's like, well, we didn't need that scene to show him at this building at all. And whenever I think of those things, I think of the idea like, okay, what is the purpose of this scene? Why are we shooting this? Why is this in the film? Right. What is this communicating? And the only thing I could think of was, for that scene, was that it showed him in a way being kind of still maybe a little scared of, white authority figures. And being, because he doesn't seem afraid of anything at home and around his family and friends, But he looks hesitant, and he puts on his suit, and he's trying to please a white man somewhere. And that's the only thing I can think of that maybe justified that scene. And, it made me think that that Fences could have probably been shortened a little bit by cutting out stuff like that. We didn't need that scene.
Well, and I think something that you run into also is they're trying to stay true to the screenplay that was written by the actual playwright, right? Like, you can run into those problems where you're trying to stay true to the source material, so you don't want to change stuff up too much. And I could see where that could become a problem. Like Kyle said, for the pacing, is there a good point to cut out this dialogue that works in theater, but in film? Right. Is there a way that you can, there's always a different way to be able to do it. But if you're trying to stay true to that to the source material, that can sometimes handcuff you.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if that, where that scene was. Like, was there a scene like that in the play? Because obviously they don't want to go through all that trouble to change a set for such a short scene.
Oh, that's true.
So
too.
I feel like, that it just would have come in where Rose was asking what happened, and like maybe that scene wouldn't have existed in the stage version. But I don't know. Tom would have a better idea than me. But, so that's one of my few criticisms of Fences, though, is that I feel like there were parts that could have been maybe shortened a little bit.
I just felt like it was in there to kind of expand, like, hey, it's not a play,
Yeah.
Right.
Just 30 seconds just to do that. Hey, look, we're driving a garbage truck down the street. Can't do that in the theater.
Right. And there were times when they would do I felt like a lot of the shots were kind of medium or long shots of the group talking. And every once in a while you would get this close up of something and you'd be like, whoa, she drops the rose. Gabe gives her that rose when he's telling her that he's fathering another child with a different woman. And then Gabe comes in, gives her the rose, and then she goes out in the yard and drops the rose, and there's like a shot of the rose on the ground. And then he's digging he's digging holes for the fence posts. And there's a close-up of the shovel going into the ground, And those shots kind of, in most movies, I wouldn't have a second thought about that. But I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's weird, because we haven't been... We haven't had shots like that a lot throughout the movie, so they stood out,
right?
And then because there's so few of them, it makes you wonder what the importance of that is. And those shots, there is importance, but there is importance to those shots, but they stood out to me. They were a little bit jarring to me. Like, oh, I'm not used to close-ups in this movie, or something that's not like a stage set, I guess.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it didn't reduce my enjoyment of it. It's just something I noticed when I was watching it.
Here, I can go through some of the trivia for you guys if it sparks anything. This one's for Fences. When Paramount Studios originally acquired the film rights to the play in 1987 with the involvement of Eddie Murphy, it was largely due to Murphy wanting to take on a more serious film role, that of 17-year-old Corey. However, in 87, Murphy was already a full decade older than the character of Corey, and the many filming delays meant that Murphy quickly aged out of eligibility for the role. Let's see here. Although August Wilson had long worked on the screenplay adaptation of his own play Fences, the film script was still incomplete when Wilson died in 2005. In January 2016, Deadline Hollywood reported that producer Scott Rudin had hired the Tony and Pulitzer-winning playwright Tony Kushner to finish Wilson's screenplay. In December 2016, the New York Times reported that although Kushner didn't receive a writing credit for its final film, he did get a prominent mention as a co-producer instead. As of 2016, it is Kushner's only ever credit as a producer on a movie.
Interesting.
This one's actually, most of August Wilson's, all of his work pretty much happened or all of his plays were centered around Pittsburgh, correct? Mm-hmm. In the film's opening shot, the most prominent building on the left side of the street is lettered Pittsburgh Courier. The Courier was Pittsburgh's African-American newspaper, among the country's most respected papers. One of its sports writers, Wendell Smith, advocated for ending the color line in Major League Baseball and traveled in 1947 with Jackie Robinson through his inaugural season with the Brooklyn Dodgers. It's just these little things here and there that stick out that you see them, but you don't know what it means, right? We already covered James Earl Jones. Okay, let's move on to Moonlight. This I thought was crazy. According to cinematographer James Laxton, Moonlight only had a small budget of $1.5 million. Director Barry Jenkins confirmed at a Q&A at the BFI in London that this was indeed the budget. This is a lower budget than any other Best Picture winner since Rocky, which cost a reported $1.1 million in its day. But if the budgets are adjusted for inflation, then Moonlight has to be regarded as the Best Picture winner with the lowest budget ever.
Wow. Crazy.
In an interview, Barry Jenkins said that 3 actors who played Chiron never met during production. He wanted each of them to build their own persona of Chiron during their respective segments, with no influence from the other portrayals. The same technique was used with the actors who played Kevin.
That's odd to me because of what I said earlier.
Exactly.
That there was a thread there. That thread doesn't necessarily have to be established by having those actors work together. Right. I can see the director, sewing that thread through the film, but that is odd to me that they were kind of given free rein and that they were actually so similar.
Such were the budgetary constraints on this production. The cast had to share one trailer for costume, hair, and makeup, and one restroom stall had to be shared by cast and crew. In the film, do you guys want to guess how long it took to shoot it?
Well, if you said, what's her name shot in 3 days,
yeah,
I'll bet it wasn't very long.
A month.
35 days.
Yeah, 30 days.
You guys are close. Filmed over 25 days in October and November of 2015.
Oh.
That is
with
insane.
with weather and everything else. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the benefits of digital technology.
This is the first LGBT film and the first film featuring an all-black cast to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. Mahershala Ali is the first person of Muslim faith to win an Academy Award for acting. There's a whole lot of firsts for Moonlight, which is great. Yeah, I can keep going on. There's a whole bunch of trivia for Moonlight, but those were kind of the ones that stuck out to me. But if you guys don't have anything else to add for the overall, let's put it to a vote. Gabe?
Yeah, like I said, I definitely enjoyed both. It's a tough one for overall.
Are you on the fence about it?
I am.
Pun intended that time.
Yeah, there's a lot of fences.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Moonlight. I think. Yep.
All right. Kyle?
Moonlight for me.
Tom?
Definitely Moonlight.
And Andrew?
I guess I'm the weird one. I'm going with fences.
All right. Since I already went through the rest of my trivia, we will just go straight into recommendations. And we will start it off with Kyle.
Oh, no. Completely unprepared for this. I don't know why I do this every month. I know what this podcast is.
Surprise!
Do you need some time?
No, you know what? Give me a second. I have been keeping a list of all the movies I've seen this year.
This year?
Yeah.
You're lucky. I feel like I don't get to watch movies anymore.
I don't get to watch.
Well, okay.
You know
so
what?
the list,
Okay. and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later. I don't know, maybe not. But I was looking at the Oscar ballot, and I realized that I had seen only one nominated movie.
Oh, really?
Out of
only one.
Everything? Or
out of all
out
of
the
them.
9?
No, out of everything.
Oh my God.
I'd only seen one nominated movie.
We saw like 5 or 6.
I feel like I'm really
Which
not
one?
keeping up.
Which one?
Which one did you see?
Can you guess?
The Irishman.
No.
1917.
No.
I haven't seen that yet either, and I'm ashamed of myself.
Kit Bull.
I haven't either.
No. I thought about seeing if I could look up one of the short films for a recommendation on this, but I didn't have time. No, my sister told me about that though. She
spoilers.
texted me. She texted me and said, "You have to see Parasite," and I haven't yet. No, Knives Out is the only one that I've seen.
Oh yeah,
nice.
All right, Kyle.
Okay, yes, I am ready. I am going to take the easy way out. Someone just recommended it. It's one of the few movies I've seen this year. You don't need me to tell you to watch 1917, but if you have not seen it, go out of your way to see it. It is an awesome film. The cinematography, set pieces, the way it feels like a continuous shot, the story from front to back, the acting performances, all of it. It's truly a great film. I really, really enjoyed it. And it was one hell of a cinematic experience. It does not feel like most movies because you really get immersed in it. I know it is not one continuous shot, but it is shot that way to give you the feeling that you are following, just some time in the lives of these people. And there are genuine moments towards the back end of the movie that are so harrowing and scary, involving people running around in the dark, that were just really, really effective filmmaking. So if you have not seen 1917, go out of your way to see it. It's incredible.
I am absolutely
It's fantastic.
ashamed that I haven't seen it yet. Watch some of the Watch the
You have
behind
to go
the
to the
scenes.
theater, dude.
I know.
You have to go to the theater. You have to see it in the theater.
Oh man,
I know. I want to. All right.
it's so good.
I'm going to throw it over to you, Tom.
So it's the most wonderful time of the year when all the theaters are full of good movies for a change. This is actually the first time in a long time where I actually saw all 9 Best Pictures before the Oscars, which is hard to do. But I was very happy that I was able to do that. And I have to tell you that there is not a nominee up for Best Picture that I would have been disappointed if it had won. All 9 movies are a thrill. My favorite movie of the year, though, I'm going to give to Jojo Rabbit because it was fun and quirky. And so I watched it at home last Thursday, and I was really sick, and I was on a lot of cold medicine. I'm not 100% sure if the movie would have affected me the same way if I hadn't been on cold medicine, but it's this kind of fun, entertaining, satirical ride. And then when you least expect it, it kicks you in the nuts. And not metaphorically, it literally kicks you in the nuts.
Whoa.
And it hurts for about 2 days. It's a wonderful movie. I think Taika Waititi is probably one of the best directors out there. So I would recommend Jojo Rabbit.
All right. I still haven't seen that either. Oh, I got a whole long list that keeps growing. Andrew.
Well, is it time that we talk about a Terminator? No? Nobody? All right.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I would definitely say that the movie that I saw recently, the acting doesn't necessarily surprise me, but the depth of acting that was in this movie and the way that it was told and the way that it kind of went back and forth, especially with the actor and actress that they had, seemed it just was a very odd coupling, but yet did so well. And that's a Marriage Story. And if you haven't seen it, you think it's just going to be this sad, gut-wrenching, but it is an emotional roller coaster. Adam Driver is just so good in it, and Scarlett Johansson, I've never seen her act this way. And so to really put those two in a film, you're just like, what is this going to work? And boy, does it. And their little boy is so good. It's just, I highly recommend A Marriage Story. It'll put you on a roller coaster ride of emotions, and I'm not going to spoil happy or sad or anything in between, but man, is it good. So go have a treat with some weird coupling of actors that work really well together.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. Gabe?
Well, everybody's recommending Oscar nominees, and I think Tom already recommended Knives Out.
I did. I recommended it before it came out.
Before it even came out, yeah. So
we did Clue and Murder by Death, and I'm like, this just fits. So
yeah, it did kind of fit in that.
Kyle recommended it again because he had just seen it.
Yeah.
After
so I
it came out.
can't recommend that then. And
So I
that's
think
about
that's
the only
legit.
movie I've seen in a long time.
Do it. Just recommend it. Who gives a shit?
No, I'm actually gonna recommend, believe it or not, and I don't know if we've recommended it, but I know we've talked about it in a way. We mentioned it before. I'm gonna recommend a Denzel Washington movie.
Oh, dun dun dun!
Don't you dare! Don't you dare! Don't you dare take my recommendation. I don't know. We're gonna find out.
I'll bet I am because I know you like it.
Yeah.
Man on Fire.
Oh, all right. We're good. Keep going.
Okay.
Woo!
I'm going to recommend Man on Fire. In part because honestly, I haven't seen that many Denzel Washington movies, and I feel like there are plenty more that I need to see. But this is one that was on HBO recently, and I saw it every time it was on. I turned to it. And I don't know if I feel like it's a great movie, but it's an interesting movie, and I think in part because of the direction and the editing of it. It's kind of like disturbingly violent, but it's a really unique editing style that I keep wondering how the hell did they do it? Because it makes you feel like they shot every scene like 3 or 4 times from different angles and distances so that they could edit it together this way. And so if anything, just kind of look at it for the editing style. But I think it's also a powerful movie. It's emotionally powerful in some ways. And what's her name? What's the actress's name?
Dakota Fanning.
Dakota Fanning. She's really young in it, but she's really great. She it was obvious early that she was just a natural at acting. And so not having seen anything recent and wanting to do something related, I'm going to recommend Man on Fire.
All right. Well, you didn't take mine.
Good. I'm glad.
I would recommend Man on Fire as well. So mine is actually an Academy Award-winning film. It won for Best Cinematography, Best Sound, and Best Actor in a Supporting Role. Went to Denzel Washington. It was released in 1989, directed by Edward Zwick, and it stars Matthew Broderick, Denzel Washington, Cary Elwes, and Morgan Freeman, and it's glory. I remember watching this movie. 1991, 92, something like that. And it just gut punched me because I grew up in a household that loved history, and my dad loved the Civil War. And, I had watched, do you guys remember when the Civil War documentary came out, the Ken Burns one?
Yeah.
When was that?
Oh, when was it?
Yeah.
No, I remember. I just remember when it.
Right.
I remember when it came out, but not the
I
date.
had a lot of exposure, to the Civil War. I had heard about these soldiers, but then watching this film, it is just really well done. It is
1990.
1990. Okay, so I did watch that before I watched this, and I can't say enough good things about this movie. It is well shot, it is well acted, and it shines a light on some lesser known happenings during the Civil War, because everyone just, Gettysburg and Fort Sumter, and they don't really hone in on these, I don't want to say little battles, but these lesser known times during the Civil War. So check out Glory. I think you will enjoy it.
Hey, can I just throw one thing out there?
Yeah.
You don't need to, because it's already been recommended this week, but you go see Parasite.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, who have you guys seen it? Who's seen it?
I haven't.
I
have not.
I'm going Friday.
It's a film class.
Really?
I think one reason why it won is that there are so many very blatant, in-your-face film tactics in terms of using levels and composition in your film. I mean, they'll be using this film classes for decades. It's so good. It's really, really good. And I jumped off the couch when it won, because I can't believe the Academy gave a South Korean movie Best Picture.
Oh yeah, I know. I was surprised.
Well,
I found it interesting though that he did basically say he studied many of the other nominated directors' films.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it completely subtitled?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious.
Unless you speak Korean.
Yeah. But even then, the subtitles are probably on, and then you're like, I speak South Korean. I don't need that. I speak South Korean, as opposed to speaking South and North Korean.
Right.
South Korean is just North Korean with a twang.
I'm gonna bet the South Koreans and the North Koreans would argue differently on that.
They might. All right, let's find out who won. I'm gonna poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Moonlight!
I think they're both good. They both do different things well.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well put. Why didn't you say that during the show?
I think I did.
I think every single one of you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Both of these movies are good.
Yeah.
I mean,
they are good movies. I'm glad we did them, because I've been wanting to see Fences, and I had actually seen like the middle part of Fences one time in a hotel room. I turned it on. I'm like, okay, I want to watch this. And no. But then I had to run, so I didn't get the beginning, and I didn't get the end. I just got this like 30-minute part of Fences, and I wanted to see more of it, and then never got to see the rest of it until a couple weeks ago. So
come back and turn on the TV and Man on Fire's on. You're like, what the fuck happened to Troy Maxon? He went nuts.
I was a little worried watching these two, and I was just like, I don't know if this is going to be like a fun episode. So,
right. Well,
but it was a good time.
Yeah.
Nope. Good time. All right, Kyle, where can people find you?
Oh boy.
Maybe teach you to speak South Korean.
South Korean? I'm going to learn Spanish. Someone's going to fleece me, and I'm going to learn Spanish again. I'm going to fall for it. Well, my jerk-sitting business has taken a real hit. Unfortunately, lost a client. Oh, no. And I mean, like, lost a client. So,
that's
due to some ongoing legal issues, I'm going to have to sit it out for a while. But I am still giving paleontology lessons at birthday parties. You can find me at Tyrannosaurus Sex.
Cool.
On Twitter.
Cool.
I also do educational talks about the birds and the bees. And I can fold those two things together if that's what you're interested in. But for now, I can't comment on ongoing legal situations. So just the dinosaur party sex education thing. That's all that's going on.
All right. Appreciate that, Kyle. Tom?
People can generally find me riding around Pittsburgh on the back of a garbage truck or slumming around diners looking for free Cuban food. I'm also on Facebook and Vimeo. And so if you're looking at me and Kyle will be down at the beach.
Wow. Tom, you can be whichever one of those two guys you want to be.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Yeah, you think about it.
This has gotten really uncomfortable. It was a throwaway joke, and now I'm blushing.
Oh, I'm gonna throw it away. All right.
Andrew.
I'm much simpler, I guess, than this. You can find me out at Arizona Ink Studios. That's INK Studios, and you can get all of our cool, fun things like our social media that we sometimes do, and you can get links to these podcasts and things like that. So go out to Arizona Ink Studios.com.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Gabe.
Well, you can maybe find me on Facebook, but I don't really spend much time there these days.
I don't blame you.
And you can check out our films at onegenomeShort.com.
Thank you, Gabe. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can see the studio videos, films on YouTube. Just search Southsider Studios. The boys and I would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. And when we get new listeners, our numbers grow. And then maybe one day we can actually, get a sponsor. That'd be great. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. For March, King of Kong tries to slap down American movie. Now, I'm really looking forward to this setup. Just about as much as I was looking forward to this month. We've been doing a lot of good bouts lately. I can't believe we have not done King of Kong. I cannot believe it. And,
believe it, son.
And for those of you that haven't seen American Movie, you guys are in for a ride. I know a majority of you have seen King of Kong, but I'm not sure that a majority of you have seen American Movie. So for Tom, Gabe, Andrew, Kyle, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
So, Gabe, since you're not on Facebook, do you want me to tell you about Tom Steyer?
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.